The announcement. The holographic news anchor flickered to life in millions of homes across Earth, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. Good evening, citizens of Earth. Today marks a historic moment in human history. The Galactic Council has officially welcomed humanity into its ranks. Jack Foster, a 28-year-old software engineer from New Austin, leaned forward on his worn couch, his heart racing. He'd been following the negotiations for months, but something about the anchor's tone made him uneasy. However, the anchor continued, her voice taking on a more serious note. Our admission comes with an unprecedented condition. To ensure lasting peace and cultural integration, the Council has enacted the Intergalactic Marriage Act. Jack's coffee mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. He barely noticed. Under this new law, every unmarried human male between the ages of 25 and 40 must take 3 alien brides from different species within the Galactic Council. This measure aims to forge unbreakable bonds between Earth and our new cosmic neighbors. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Jack stared at the hologram, his mind reeling. 3 alien wives. It had to be a joke, a prank by some hacker group. But as the anchor continued to detail the law, providing statements from Earth's newly appointed ambassador and clips of alien representatives, the reality began to sink in. Outside, the streets erupted in chaos. Angry shouts and the wail of sirens filled the air. Jack stumbled to his window, watching as people poured out of their homes and apartments, some in protest, others in panic. In the following days, Earth became a powder keg of emotions. Protests raged in every major city, with signs declaring humans for humans, and no alien overlords. Counter-protests sprang up, championing the opportunity for advancement and galactic peace. Jack found himself caught in the middle, torn between fear of the unknown and a spark of curiosity about the vastness of the universe that now lay open before humanity. A week after the announcement, Jack received an official notification. His hands trembled as he opened the holographic message. Dear Mr. Foster, you have been selected as a candidate for the Intergalactic Marriage Program. Please report to your local Galactic Integration Center for processing and matching within 72 hours. Failure to comply may result in penalties as outlined in the Earth Galactic Treaty, Section 47B. We congratulate you on this opportunity to serve as an ambassador for humanity and forge new bonds across the stars. Sincerely, the Earth Galactic Integration Committee. Jack sat heavily on his couch, the notification glowing accusingly before him. He had 3 days to decide. Comply with this insane law or face the consequences of defiance. As the deadline approached, Jack found himself standing outside the imposing structure of the Galactic Integration Center. The building seemed to have sprung up overnight, a gleaming tower of impossible architecture that hurt the eyes if you looked at it too long. Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped through the shimmering force field that served as an entrance. Inside, the air hummed with an alien energy, and beings of all shapes and sizes moved about with purpose. Some were clearly fellow humans, looking just as lost and overwhelmed as Jack felt. Others were unmistakably alien. Tentacled creatures floating in bubbles of liquid, beings of pure energy contained in humanoid suits, and everything in between. A holographic assistant materialized before Jack. Welcome, John Foster. Please proceed to Processing Chamber 17 for your initial assessment and species compatibility scan. As Jack walked through the center, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was trading away his humanity. Yet, a small part of him thrilled at the idea of exploring the universe, of being part of something greater than himself. In Processing Chamber 17, Jack found himself surrounded by advanced alien technology. A swirling vortex of light enveloped him, and he felt a tingling sensation as it scanned every cell of his body. Scan complete, a disembodied voice announced. Human male, age 28, genetic profile cataloged. Compatibility matches found with Zorxa, Elorian, and Visceri species. Proceed to Orientation Room 5 for further instruction. As Jack exited the chamber, still reeling from the scan, he nearly collided with another human. The man, older and distinguished-looking, steadied Jack with a firm grip. "Easy there, son," the man said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "First time's always a shock." Jack nodded, grateful for the moment of human connection. "I'm Jack Foster, Ambassador Williams," the man replied. "I was part of the negotiation team for the treaty." Jack's eyes widened in recognition. You agreed to this." Williams sighed heavily. "It was this or war, son. The galaxy's a lot more crowded and dangerous than we ever imagined. This law, it's our best shot at survival and advancement." Before Jack could respond, a melodic chime filled the air. "All process candidates, please report to the Grand Hall for the welcoming ceremony," a voice announced. Williams squeezed Jack's shoulder. "Good luck out there. Remember, you're not just representing yourself anymore. You're representing all of humanity." With that, the ambassador disappeared into the crowd, leaving Jack to face his new reality alone. As he made his way to the Grand Hall, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into a new world, one where the fate of humanity might rest on the success or failure of these forced marriages. The Grand Hall was a marvel of alien architecture, with ceilings that seemed to stretch into infinity and walls that shimmered with colors Jack had never seen before. Thousands of humans filled the space, all looking as lost and overwhelmed as he felt. A hush fell over the crowd as a beam of pure light floated onto the stage. When it spoke, its voice resonated not through the air, but directly in Jack's mind. "Greetings, children of Earth," the being said. "I am Zalforan, High Counselor of the Galactic Federation. Today, you take your first steps into a larger universe. The bonds you forge through these unions will be the foundation of a new era of peace and prosperity for all species." As Zalforan continued to speak of the honor bestowed upon them and the importance of their role, Jack found his gaze drawn to the edges of the stage. There, partially obscured by shimmering veils of energy, he caught glimpses of his potential brides. Beings from across the galaxy, each as alien and mysterious as the last. Jack's heart raced. This was really happening. In a matter of days, he would be married to 3 of these creatures, bound by law and duty to forge a life together. As the ceremony concluded and the newly processed humans were ushered towards their assigned quarters, Jack couldn't help but wonder. Was this the dawn of a new age for humanity, or the beginning of the end? Preparation and selection. The days following the welcoming ceremony passed in a blur of orientations, cultural sensitivity training, and endless medical examinations. Jack found himself in a sterile room, surrounded by holographic displays of alien anatomy and physiology. "Mr. Foster," a robotic voice chirped, "please pay attention. Understanding the biological needs of your future spouses is crucial for a harmonious union." Jack blinked, focusing on the swirling diagrams before him. One showed a creature that seemed to be made entirely of crystalline structures, while another displayed a being composed of swirling gases. "The Zorexa require a high-sodium environment," the voice continued. "Your living quarters will be equipped with a salt mist generator. The Ilorian, being photosynthetic, will need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight, or equivalent radiation daily. As for the Visari," Jack's mind wandered again. How was he supposed to build a life, let alone a family, with beings so fundamentally different from himself? A chime signaled the end of the session, and Jack stumbled out into the corridor. He nearly collided with a petite woman with striking green eyes. "Oh there, big guy," she said, steadying him. "You look like you've seen a ghost, or maybe an alien." She chuckled at her own joke. "Sorry," Jack mumbled. "I'm Jack. Just trying to process all this." "Sarah," she replied with a warm smile. "And aren't we all? Come on, I heard they're serving something resembling coffee in the lounge. We could both use a break." As they walked, Jack found himself opening up to Sarah. She was a biologist, he learned, and had volunteered for the program out of scientific curiosity. "Don't get me wrong," Sarah said as they settled into the lounge with their steaming mugs. "I'm terrified. But think about it, Jack. We're going to be the first humans to truly understand these species, to live with them, maybe even." She trailed off, but Jack caught her meaning. The idea of intimacy with an alien was still too much for him to contemplate. "But what about love?" Jack asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at him. "How can we be expected to build a life with beings we might not even be able to communicate with properly?" Sarah's expression softened. "I don't know, Jack, but humans have a remarkable capacity for adaptation. And love, well, love finds a way, doesn't it? Even in the strangest circumstances." Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement. "All candidates, please report to the selection chamber. The matching process will now begin." Jack's stomach churned as he and Sarah made their way to a vast, circular room. Hundreds of humans stood in concentric circles, facing outward. Beyond them, separated by a shimmering energy field, were the alien candidates. A disembodied voice explained the process. "The selection algorithm will now begin. When a match is made, the energy field will open, allowing the matched pair to meet. Remember, this is but the first step in your journey together." The room hummed with energy, and Jack felt a tingling sensation wash over him. Suddenly, the field before him shimmered and parted. Through the opening stepped a being that defied description. A swirling mass of iridescent tentacles surrounding a core of pulsating light. "Greetings, Jack Foster," a melodious voice echoed in his mind. "I am Zara of the Zorexa. We are to be joined in union." Jack stood frozen, unable to form words. This was his first wife, an alien consciousness housed in a body so foreign he could barely comprehend it. Before he could respond, another section of the field parted. A towering figure, easily 9 feet tall and covered in shimmering scales, stepped through. "I am Lyra, of the Elorian," the being said, its voice a low, rumbling melody. "It is my honor to be your second mate." Jack's head swam. This was happening too fast. He looked around desperately, seeking Sarah, but she was engaged with her own matches, a crystalline being and what appeared to be a sentient cloud of sparkling dust. The field parted a third time, revealing a humanoid figure with skin the color of deep space, speckled with what looked like stars. Its eyes, silver and pupilless, fixed on Jack. "Greetings, Jack of Earth," it said in a voice like whispered silk. "I am Vex of the Visari. Our union shall bridge the gap between our peoples." As his 3 alien brides gathered around him, Jack felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was no longer just Jack Foster, software engineer from New Austin. He was now a diplomatic link between Earth and the galaxy, expected to forge a family with beings he could scarcely understand. "Well," he said, his voice shaky but determined, "I guess we have a lot to learn about each other." Zara's tentacles shimmered with what Jack hoped was approval. Lyra's scales rippled in a mesmerizing pattern. Vex simply nodded, a small smile playing on their star-flecked lips. As the newly matched groups were ushered out of the selection chamber and towards their shared living quarters, Jack caught Sarah's eye across the room. She gave him a thumbs up and a brave smile, her own trio of alien spouses clustered around her. Jack took a deep breath. This was his new reality. It was terrifying, yes, but also exhilarating. He was about to embark on an adventure unlike any in human history. As they entered their new home, a spacious apartment that somehow accommodated the vastly different environmental needs of all 4 species, Jack turned to his new family. "So," he said, mustering all the courage he could, "who wants to help me make dinner?" The apartment filled with a cacophony of alien laughter, marking the beginning of a journey that would change not just Jack's life, but the course of human history. Part 3. First Contact. The first few days of cohabitation were a crash course in interspecies relations. Jack found himself navigating a minefield of cultural misunderstandings, biological necessities, and communication barriers. Zara, the Zorixa, communicated primarily through bioluminescent patterns that rippled across her tentacles. It took Jack hours of practice with a neural interface to begin deciphering even the most basic messages. "No, Zara," Jack said for the umpteenth time. "I can't join you in your salt bath. I'm not built for that kind of salinity." Zara's tentacles flashed in what Jack had come to recognize as frustration. A gentle voice echoed in his mind. "But how are we to bond if we cannot share experiences?" Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We'll find a way, I promise. Maybe we can watch a holo movie together. I'll sit by the edge of your tank." Before Zara could respond, a low, rumbling voice interrupted. "Jack, it is time for my solar absorption. Would you care to join me on the terrace?" Lyra, the towering Aelorian, stood in the doorway, her scales shimmering with anticipation. Jack had learned that for her species, basking together was an intimate bonding experience. "Of course, Lyra," Jack said, grateful for an activity he could actually participate in. He turned back to Zara. "We'll continue this later, okay?" As Jack followed Lyra onto the terrace, he caught sight of Vex, the Visari, sitting cross-legged in a corner of the living room. Their star-speckled skin seemed to pulse gently as they meditated, occasionally mumbling in a language that sounded like music. "First contact," continued. Zara went first, her tentacles creating a mesmerizing light show as she shared a Zorixa creation myth. Through a combination of bioluminescent patterns and telepathic impressions, she wove a tale of cosmic beings birthing galaxies from their dreams. Jack watched in awe, the story unfolding in his mind's eye like the most vivid dream he'd ever experienced. When Zara finished, the room fell silent, everyone processing the profound beauty of her people's origin story. Lyra went next, her scales shifting colors as she recounted an ancient Aelorian battle hymn. Her low, rumbling voice filled the room, the melody so powerful that Jack felt it resonating in his bones. The song told of great Aelorian warriors joining their life forces to defend their world against a cosmic threat, sacrificing their individual forms to become living starships. As the last notes faded, Jack felt a lump in his throat. The depth of emotion in Lyra's performance was palpable, transcending the barriers of species and language. Vex's turn came, and the Visari's skin began to ripple with starry patterns. In a voice like whispered silk, they began to recount what seemed to be a philosophical parable. Jack listened, entranced, as Vex spoke of the interconnectedness of all things, of how the Visari viewed the universe as a grand tapestry, each being a crucial thread in its design. As Vex's story concluded, 3 pairs of alien eyes turned to Jack. It was his turn to share, and he felt woefully unprepared. What could he possibly offer that would compare to the cosmic scale of his wife's cultural contributions? Taking a deep breath, Jack began to speak. "On Earth, we have many cultures, many stories," he started, his voice shaky at first, but growing stronger. "But there's one that I think speaks to our situation now. It's an ancient tale called the Tower of Babel." As Jack recounted the biblical story of humanity's attempt to build a tower to the heavens, only to be divided by language, he saw his wives listening intently. He explained how the tale was often interpreted as a warning against hubris, but how he saw it differently. "To me," Jack said, warming to his subject, "it's a story about the challenges and importance of communication. When we can't understand each other, we fall apart. But when we make the effort to bridge those gaps, to learn each other's languages and ways, we can achieve incredible things together." As he finished, Jack was surprised to see his wives showing signs of what he interpreted as approval. Zara's tentacles glowed with warm colors, Lyra's scales shimmered in an intricate pattern, and Vex's star-speckled skin seemed to twinkle more brightly. "Your story carries great wisdom, Jack of Earth," Vex said, their silver eyes seeming to peer into his soul. "It is most applicable to our current endeavor." Lyra nodded, her multifaceted eyes blinking in a pattern Jack had come to associate with agreement. "Indeed, We must strive to build understanding between us, lest we fall like your tower. Zara's voice echoed in Jack's mind, tinged with what he thought might be excitement. Perhaps we can create our own language, a blend of all our ways of communication. For the first time since this wild journey began, Jack felt a genuine sense of connection with his alien wives. They were all in this together, navigating uncharted waters of interspecies relationships. I think that's a wonderful idea, Zara, Jack said, smiling. Why don't we start now? We could each teach the others a simple phrase or gesture from our cultures. What followed was an evening filled with laughter, confusion, and breakthroughs. Jack found himself attempting to ripple his skin like Vex, and failing miserably, while Lyra tried to master the human handshake with her much larger scaled hands. Zara created a simplified bioluminescent alphabet that the others began to learn, and Vex taught them all a Visari meditation technique that left Jack feeling more centered than he had in weeks. As the night wound down, Jack looked around at his unusual family. Zara was back in her salt tank, her tentacles lazily creating patterns that Jack could now somewhat understand. Lyra was curled up on her heat rock, her scales still faintly glowing from the day's solar absorption. Vex sat cross-legged on the couch, their skin a canvas of twinkling stars. For the first time, Jack didn't see them as alien beings he was forced to marry. He saw them as individuals, complex, fascinating, and just as invested in making this work as he was. As he prepared for bed, Jack caught his reflection in the mirror. He looked different somehow. Older, perhaps, but also more alive. His eyes held a spark that hadn't been there before. "Well, Jack," he muttered to himself, "you wanted adventure. Looks like you've got it in spades." With a chuckle, he climbed into bed, his dreams filled with shimmering tentacles, starry skin, and scales that danced with color. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, Jack felt ready to face them. He was no longer just a reluctant participant in an alien marriage program. He was a pioneer, forging connections that might one day change the course of galactic history. As he drifted off to sleep, Jack couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the universe had in store for him and his new family adaptation and understanding. Weeks turned into months, and slowly but surely, Jack and his alien wives began to find their rhythm. The apartment that had once felt like a strange museum of extraterrestrial life now felt like home, filled with a blend of human and alien touches that reflected their growing bond. One morning, Jack awoke to find Zora's salt tank empty. Panic gripped him for a moment before he heard a commotion in the kitchen. He rushed in to find Zora, supported by a hovering water bubble, attempting to use the coffee maker. "Zara," Jack said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "What are you doing?" The Zorix's tentacles rippled with what Jack now recognized as a mix of frustration and determination. "I am trying to prepare your morning beverage," Zara's voice echoed in his mind. "Lyra informed me that it is an important ritual for you." Jack felt a warmth spread through his chest. The sight of the alien being, so different from himself, trying to master a human appliance out of consideration for him, was unexpectedly touching. "Here, let me show you," Jack said, gently guiding Zora through the process. Together, they brewed a pot of coffee, Zora's tentacles delicately manipulating the controls under Jack's guidance. As they sat, or in Zora's case, hovered, at the kitchen table, sharing the fruits of their labor, Lyra emerged from her heat rock, scales glittering in the morning light. "Ah, the scent of your earth brew," Lyra rumbled appreciatively. "It reminds me of a delicacy on my homeworld. Perhaps we could attempt to recreate it someday." Jack nodded enthusiastically. "I'd love that, Lyra. Maybe we could have a weekly cultural cuisine night. Each of us could introduce a dish from our world." Vex, who had been silently observing from the corner, their starry skin pulsing gently, spoke up. "A commendable idea, Jack. The sharing of sustenance is a universal bonding experience." And so began a new tradition in their household. Each week, they would gather to prepare and share foods from their respective worlds. Jack introduced them to spaghetti bolognese, while Lyra prepared a dish that looked like living crystals, but tasted like the most succulent fruit. Zara's contributions were often gelatinous and required special containment fields, but Jack found he enjoyed the wild variety of flavors. Vex's dishes were the most challenging, often incorporating elements that existed on the edge of physical reality, but they were always an adventure for the senses. These shared meals became a cornerstone of their relationship, a time to discuss their days, share stories of their homeworlds, and learn more about each other's cultures and personal histories. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments of frustration, of cultural clashes and misunderstandings. Jack struggled with the complex mating rituals of the Elorians, which involved elaborate dances that his human body simply couldn't replicate. Zara sometimes forgot that not everyone could breathe underwater, leading to some near-disastrous attempts at shared bathing. And Vex's need for occasional travel through higher dimensions left Jack with migraines as he tried to comprehend the physics involved. But for every challenge, there seemed to be a moment of connection that made it all worthwhile. Like the night, Lyra comforted Jack after he received news of his grandmother's passing back on Earth. The Elorian had enveloped him in her massive scaled arms, her body heat soothing him as she hummed a lullaby from her world. Or the time Zara used her bioluminescent patterns to create a light show for a group of visiting human children, leaving them wide-eyed with wonder and helping to bridge the gap between species. Even Vex, usually so ethereal and seemingly detached, showed moments of profound empathy. When Jack expressed feeling overwhelmed by the vastness of the galaxy and his small place in it, Vex took him on a meditative journey through their memories of cosmic wonders, helping Jack see the beauty in the universe's immensity. As Jack grew closer to his wives, he also found himself forming bonds with other humans in the program. His friendship with Sarah, the biologist he'd met during the selection process, deepened. They often met to share their experiences, providing each other with a much-needed connection to their human roots. "You know," Sarah said during one of their coffee dates, her own trio of alien spouses engaged in what looked like a heated game of multi-dimensional chess nearby. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually happy." Jack nodded, understanding completely. It's not what any of us expected, but it's beautiful in its own way. We're part of something bigger than ourselves. Sarah grinned. "Look at you, sounding all wise and philosophical. Your Vizari is rubbing off on you." They shared a laugh, the sound mingling with the clicks, whistles, and harmonic hums of their alien families. As Jack made his way home that evening, he found himself reflecting on how much had changed. The fear and uncertainty that had gripped him in the beginning had given way to a sense of purpose and belonging. He was no longer just Jack Foster, reluctant participant in an alien marriage program. He was a bridge between worlds, a pioneer in a grand experiment of galactic cooperation. Entering the apartment, he was greeted by the sight of his 3 wives engaged in what had become a common evening ritual. Zara was teaching Lyra and Vex new bioluminescent patterns, the room alive with swirling colors. They turned as he entered, their alien features arranged in what he now recognized as expressions of welcome and affection. "Welcome home, Jack," they said in unison, each in their own unique way. Zara threw a burst of color and telepathic warmth, Lyra in her rumbling tones, and Vex in their silky whisper. As he joined them, adding his own fumbling attempts at bioluminescent communication to the mix, Jack felt a profound sense of peace. This was his family now, as strange and wonderful as the stars themselves, and together they were writing a new chapter in the story of humanity's place in the universe. Unexpected alliance. The day began like any other in Jack's now not-so-unusual household. He was sipping his morning coffee, prepared by Zora's now expert tentacles, while Lyra basked in the early sunlight on the terrace. Vex was in their usual meditative state, their star-speckled skin pulsing gently in rhythm with some cosmic force only they could perceive. Suddenly, the apartment's AI chimed with an urgent tone. "Emergency broadcast from the Galactic Council. All citizens are required to tune in immediately. The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing the familiar form of Zalforan, the High Counselor. But gone was the being's usual serene demeanor. Instead, Zalforan's light form pulsed with what Jack had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. Citizens of the Galactic Federation, Zalforan's voice resonated. We face a crisis unprecedented in our history. A hostile force from beyond the galactic rim has breached our outer defenses. They call themselves the Void Collective, a hive mind bent on assimilating all sentient life into their consciousness. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at his wives, seeing his own shock and fear mirrored in their alien features. Zalforan continued, "The galactic fleet is mobilizing, but early encounters have proven challenging. The Void Collective's technology is unlike anything we've encountered. We call upon all citizens to prepare for potential evacuation and to report any unusual activity immediately." As the broadcast ended, the apartment fell into a tense silence. It was Vex who spoke first, their usually calm voice tinged with worry. "The Visceri have legends of such beings. Consumers of worlds, destroyers of individuality. If they have truly come, we face a grave threat indeed." Lyra's scales had taken on a dull, ashen color. "The Elorian battle fleets will join the fight, but if the Collective's technology is as advanced as Zalforan suggests." Zera's tentacles writhed in agitation, her bioluminescent patterns a chaotic swirl of alarm. "The Zorexa are a peaceful people. We have no defenses against such an enemy." Jack felt overwhelmed. Just as he had begun to adapt to his new life, to find beauty in the vast tapestry of galactic civilization, it was all threatened by an unimaginable enemy. "There must be something we can do," Jack said, his voice firm despite the fear churning in his gut. "We can't just sit here and wait for the end." Over the next few days, reports from the front lines grew increasingly dire. The Void Collective's ships seemed impervious to conventional weapons, their technology able to bypass the most advanced shields. World after world fell silent, their populations presumably assimilated into the hive mind. Jack and his family, along with Sarah and her spouses, found themselves spending long hours at the Galactic Integration Center, working alongside other human-alien families to coordinate evacuation plans and support the war effort however they could. It was during one of these sessions that Jack had an epiphany. He had been listening to a group of alien scientists discuss the Collective's apparent invulnerability when a stray thought struck him. "Wait," he interrupted, drawing surprised looks from the assembled beings. "You said their ships absorb energy weapons and adapt to physical attacks, right? But what about old-school, primitive technology?" The lead scientist, a floating orb of pulsating light, turned its attention to Jack. "Explain, human." Jack felt a surge of excitement. "On Earth, we have a saying. Sometimes the old ways are best. What if we combined our most ancient weapons with your advanced tech? Something the Collective wouldn't expect or be prepared for." The idea sparked a flurry of discussion. Jack found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, working with a diverse team of humans and aliens to develop what they dubbed retro-tech weapons. They created railguns powered by antimatter, catapults that launched miniature black holes, and even a modernized version of Greek fire that burned across the vacuum of space. Each weapon combined primitive concepts with the most advanced technology the galaxy had to offer. As the first prototypes were rushed into production, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Here he was, a simple software engineer from Earth, potentially turning the tide in an intergalactic war. The day of reckoning came all too soon. The Void Collective breached the inner defenses of the galactic core, their vast fleet of world ships bearing down on the heart of the Federation. Jack stood on the bridge of the flagship, surrounded by his wives and a motley crew of humans and aliens. Before them, the viewport showed a sea of stars obscured by the looming shapes of the Collective's ships. "All ships, this is Admiral Cathor." A gravelly voice came over the comms. "Deployed retro-tech weapons on my mark." And may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on our souls." Jack held his breath as the order was given. Streams of antimatter-powered projectiles streaked across space. Catapults launched their reality-warping payloads, and great gouts of hyper-advanced Greek fire blossomed in the void. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the collected ships began to falter. Their impenetrable shields flickered and died, their hulls breached by weapons they had never encountered and could not adapt to. The battle raged for hours, but in the end, the combined forces of the Galactic Federation, armed with their hybrid weapons, emerged victorious. The remnants of the Void Collective retreated beyond the galactic rim, their hive mind shattered. In the aftermath, as the galaxy began the long process of rebuilding, Jack found himself hailed as a hero. But as he stood with his alien wives, watching the celebrations unfold across 1,000 worlds, he knew the real victory was not the defeat of an enemy, but the unity that had been forged in the face of adversity. "You have done your people proud, Jack," Lyra rumbled, her scales shimmering with pride. Zera's tentacles created a dazzling light show of joy and admiration. "You have saved not just us, but countless civilizations." Vex placed a star-speckled hand on Jack's shoulder. "Your insight has proven that there is strength in diversity, in the blending of old and new, of different perspectives and technologies." Jack smiled, feeling a profound sense of belonging. He was no longer just a human in an alien world. He was part of something greater, a beautiful tapestry of life that spanned the stars. "We did this together," he said, looking at his wives, and then out at the celebrating crowd of humans and aliens. "All of us from every corner of the galaxy. And together, there's nothing we can't face."